Welcome to this explainer. We hear the word cloud thrown around literally all the time, but what is it actually? Today, we're going to completely strip away all that intimidating IT jargon and just dive right into the reality of the cloud. If you've ever felt kind of confused by it, don't worry, you're in the exact right place. We're going to break it all down using facts directly from top cloud providers to give you a crystal clear picture.
So let's start with a really basic question. Where exactly does your data live? Think about it. When you snap a photo on your phone and it just magically pops up on your tablet a second later, where did it go in between? Well, spoiler alert, the cloud isn't magic, and it definitely isn't some fluffy white cumulonimbus floating up in the sky. Actually, it's a massive, highly secure global network of physical servers. These servers sit in giant, heavily guarded buildings called data centers, and they are working around the clock to store your files, process your requests, and stream your favorite videos.
At its absolute core, the cloud is just computing resources delivered over the internet. That's really it. Instead of relying on that local hard drive sitting inside your laptop, you're tapping into shared computing power, storage space, and databases on demand. Basically, someone else owns and maintains the physical machines, and you just use your internet connection to access what they can do. It's a fundamental shift in how we interact with technology. Moving into Section 1, the power grid analogy, rethinking how we get our computing power. Okay, let's really dive into this analogy, because it is hands down the best way to visualize how cloud computing actually works in the real world. Think about traditional on-premise IT. A company having its own humming servers stuffed in some office closet. That is a lot like buying a massive power generator to run your house. You gotta buy the whole thing up front, pay for the fuel, fix it when it inevitably breaks, and listen to it rumble 24/7. It is incredibly expensive and honestly exhausting to maintain. Cloud computing, on the other hand, is exactly like plugging your TV into the electrical grid. You don't need to know how the nuclear power plant 10 miles away works, right? You just flip a switch, use the exact amount of electricity you need, and then pay your utility provider only for what you actually consumed that month. And this shift, it changes absolutely everything. Amazon Web Services actually sums it up perfectly. They say, instead of buying, owning, and maintaining physical data centers, access technology services on an as-needed basis. That pay-as-you-go utility model really is the secret sauce here. It completely removes the heavy burden of maintenance, totally wipes out those massive upfront costs, and lets people focus entirely on whatever it is they're actually trying to build. All right, Section 2, the 3 levels of cloud. Decoding IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. Now, the tech world absolutely loves its acronyms, so let's break this alphabet soup down into 3 simple levels of renting from our virtual power grid. The foundational level is IaaS, or Infrastructure as a Service. This is where you rent the basic raw IT building blocks on a pay-as-you-go basis. We're talking virtual servers, raw storage space, networking components. It gives you the absolute highest level of flexibility and control. To stick with our power grid analogy, IaaS is basically like renting an empty plot of land. You've got the connection, the space is yours, but you still have to build the house from the ground up exactly the way you want it. Then, one step up from that is PaaS, or Platform as a Service. This provides an on-demand environment specifically tailored for software developers, so they don't have to worry about the underlying hardware. The provider handles all the servers, the operating systems, the complicated capacity planning, all of it. So if IaaS is renting an empty plot of land, PaaS is like renting a fully equipped workshop. The tools, the workbench, the utilities, they're all right there. It completely removes the heavy lifting so developers can just focus entirely on their actual job, writing great software for the rest of us. And finally, we hit the top layer, SaaS, which stands for Software as a Service. This is a complete finished software application hosted and managed entirely by the provider and accessed right over the internet. You aren't maintaining it, you're not installing tedious security patches, you don't spend a single second thinking about the infrastructure. You just open your web browser or an app on your phone and use it. It is the fully built, fully furnished house on our grid. You just walk through the front door and turn on the lights. Which brings us to Section 3, the cloud in your daily life. You're already using it. You might be thinking this all sounds super corporate and a little distant. But the truth is, you are interacting with the cloud, specifically SaaS, literally every single day. Let's bring this concept home. When you check your webmail on Gmail, you definitely aren't hosting a noisy email server in your own closet, right? Google's cloud is doing all the heavy lifting for you. When you fire up Netflix, that massive, endless catalog of movies is being delivered over the internet via the cloud. Or when you save a family photo in Dropbox, you're using remote cloud storage. These everyday habits are all perfect, real-world examples of software as a service. You get to just enjoy the end product, while a massive cloud provider seamlessly handles the entire backend. And just to give you a real sense of the sheer horsepower behind these everyday apps, consider this staggering number: 306 million. That is the number of active users on Snapchat, sending over 5 billion snaps seamlessly every single day. 5 billion. It's an incredible feat of engineering that we honestly just take for granted. You simply cannot support hundreds of millions of users sharing photos and videos simultaneously with just a few computers sitting in a back room. Something like that requires the massive, elastic, entirely invisible infrastructure of the public cloud to keep everything running without a hitch. All right, section 4, the business shift. Why everyone is abandoning the generator. So we've seen how the cloud powers our personal lives, but why are massive global enterprises racing to move their operations there? Well, it really comes down to 4 critical advantages. First, businesses can immediately optimize their IT costs by ditching those huge data center expenses for variable pay-as-you-go billing. Second, they get elastic speed and agility. That means no more over-purchasing hardware just in case they have a busy shopping day. The cloud just stretches and shrinks based on whatever the demand is. Third, they can achieve global scale in literally minutes, letting them reach customers all over the world instantly. And finally, enhanced security and reliability. Major cloud providers are investing billions of dollars into cybersecurity and disaster recovery, which is way more than any single company could ever afford to do on its own. But the really crucial point here is this: businesses can spin up resources in minutes, not months. Historically, if a company wanted to launch a new product, it took months to order servers, plug them in, configure the software, and test the network. It was a whole ordeal. Today, a business can go from a local idea to a global deployment with just a few clicks of a mouse. That unprecedented speed to market is exactly why the cloud is the backbone of modern business. So, I want to leave you with this final thought. Think about your days so far. The emails you sent, the music you streamed, the online banking you checked, or even the navigation app you used to beat traffic today. How much of your daily life relies completely on massive, invisible data centers humming away across the globe? The cloud isn't just some passing technology trend. It is quite literally the invisible power grid of the 21st century. So keep that in mind the next time you hit save. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and as always, stay curious.